We are the first independent intelligence agency, preserving peace and protecting life.
Welcome to the club.
All right, Scott, we are here at New York Comic Con where you just got out of a panel for The Kingsman where we got some new first looks at the movie as well as some information about it. Now, one of the big scenes that we saw focused a lot on the villain of the movie, Rasputin, which you thought was one of the most interesting points to discuss.
Yeah, I'm a big Rasputin fan, which is a weird thing to say, but he's like a notorious, like terrible person, but like he's been in media and in movies and stuff, even in Anastasia, you were saying, the animated film, and it's really cool to see him here. He's like he's really vicious and scary, and like his there's a big Kingsman fight scene, of course, at one point, and he's doing like Russian dancing as part of his fighting skills, you know, and he's using like silverware and like platter tops and things like that, and it's just really cool. And I think this Kingsman is set like I guess around World War I era, so it's a prequel. It doesn't have any of the characters from the original films, and so it feels different in that way. We're meeting a whole new group of people, but it also still feels very Kingsman when you get to those action scenes.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. So they did show some footage and kind of like a teaser trailer that was just for the room at New York Comic Con. They aren't going to be releasing it, right. And that was kind of a repeated talking point where, you know, this is an origin movie, but I thought that the fight sequences in particular, which we haven't seen in the other trailers, like they've been very focused on like the scale and the World War I epicness of it. I thought the fight scenes felt more Kingsman than what I've seen thus far.
Yeah, it definitely still feels like it's a Matthew Vaughn film, and it feels like it's set in the Kingsman world just 100 years earlier, I guess. But like, yeah, the trailers that we've seen, there's a lot of like sweeping, epic World War I footage, and actually Vaughn even said that they used the same lenses that they shot Lawrence of Arabia with, which is crazy. And he said it was really kind of hard because they were like, would always lose focus, and like they're so old now they were falling apart, but it's for that epic sweeping look, I guess. So the film is going to be different in some ways for sure, but then of course we still go back to the Kingsman suit shop, right? Like we've got to do that in a Kingsman movie as well. So it's Kingsman, and yet it's not quite Kingsman in some ways.
Well, it's interesting because we actually just earlier this week ran a set visit piece from the Kingsman set where Matthew Vaughn had said originally this wasn't even intended to be a Kingsman movie, but then he wanted it to live within the world because he thought it would be an easier sell for the studio. So you have this scene where it's between Ralph Fiennes' character and Harris Dickinson's, where they're like a literal father-son duo, where they're in the Kingsman suit shop, but this is before the Secret Service with the capital S's became a thing. So I don't know, how did you feel about like the tone of those scenes?
It's interesting because there's definitely some tension between those two. It seems that the son wants to do something with his life that maybe the dad has a different idea of what he wants him to do. So thematically it's similar to the original film in that it's a mentor-mentee kind of relationship, but this time it's much more personal because they're father and son. I liked it, and I think it's maybe going to give a little bit more of a emotional edge to it as well, because they sort of refer to the mom and wife is no longer around, so we don't really know exactly yet what the situation is, but there's clearly a bond between these two, but I think it's going to be tested by the events of Kingsman.
Well, tying it back to your first point, I do think like it's really interesting. They're pulling a lot of real world historical figures into it, and I think it'll be like, I think the fun of the movie will come when, like, again, Rasputin's your villain. You have these crazy fight scenes.
He's dancing on a table fighting him. You have to see it to believe
Just act out the fight scene for us.
I know you want to fight, but there are other ways of doing your duty. You're going to need a suit.